hello everyone who's been joining in the last couple of minutes. I'm very pleased to be chairing this session by my esteemed colleague in Syriac Studies, the Reverend Professor Ignacio Carvajosa, who is Professor of Old Testament and Semitic Languages at the San Damaso University in Madrid. Ignacio is from Cartagena in Spain. He was ordained a Catholic priest in 1997 for Madrid. He completed his PhD at the Pontifical Biblical Institute in Rome in 2005, and there his dissertation was entitled "The Character of the Syriac Version of Psalms, a Study of Psalms 90 to 150 in the Peshitta," which is the Syriac version of the Bible, and that appeared in 2008 in English. He is a full professor of the Old Testament at San Damaso University in Madrid. His main field of research is textual criticism and ancient versions of the Hebrew Bible, especially Syriac versions. He has been the area editor of Syriac translations for the important series, The Textual History of the Bible, and he is currently the area editor of Syriac biblical manuscripts for the Handbook of Biblical Manuscripts inside the big series, Textual History of the Bible Handbooks. Professor Carvajosa was the chief editor of the journal Estudios Bíblicos from 2007 to 21. He's a member of the editorial board of the journal Textus and the journal Vetus Testamentum. He is a member of the editorial board of the series Monographs of the Peshitta Institute, the Textual History of the Bible Handbooks, Supplements to the Textual History of the Bible, and Eric Vergelin Studies Supplements. He has written a commentary on the Book of Psalms in Spanish. The first volume came out in 2018 and the second volume in 2023. Among his books in English, there is the Hebraica Veritas versus Septuaginta Auctoritatem. Does a canonical text of the Old Testament exist? Which I can certainly recommend. A book, Faith, the Fount of Exegesis, the Interpretation of Scripture in Light of the History of Research on the Old Testament in 2013. And as I mentioned before, The Character of the Syriac Version of Psalms, a study of Psalms 90 to 150 in the Peshitta, the Syriac version. Professor Carvajosa has been a visiting scholar at the Catholic University of America, Oxford University just last year, and Harvard University. I'm delighted that he's able to talk about this very important scroll as we come into the season of Purim, which starts on Saturday the 23rd. So this is very timely. Thank you very much, Ignacio, and I'm looking forward to your talk.
Thank you very much, Alison, for your presentation. So I begin sharing my presentation. I think it works. Okay, the title of my talk this afternoon in Madrid is A Curious Megillat Esther, or How to Find a Needle in a Haystack. It's a kind of riddle, but don't worry, I will try to solve this riddle during my talk. And my starting point, wait a minute, okay. My starting point is not the Book of Esther, but the second book of Kings, the chapter 22, verse 8 and 10. So we have to come back to the kingdom of Judah at the end of the 7th century BCE, when Josiah was the king. I read, the high priest Hilkiah said to Shaphan, the secretary, I had found a scroll of the law in the house of the Lord. Shaphan, the secretary, informed the king, the priest Hilkiah has given me a scroll. Shaphan then read it aloud to the king. I have read this very well-known episode of the Bible, where we have probably the origin of the book of Deuteronomy, because something very similar happened to me about 14 years ago in 2010. It happened not in the temple of Jerusalem, but in another temple in Madrid. As you can see here, this is our temple, that is the Cathedral, Catholic Cathedral of Madrid. And it's located just in front of the royal palace, like in Jerusalem, this communication between the temple and the royal palace of Josiah, king. And in this view, you can see the temple, the cathedral, and the royal palace, and the high priest of the Cathedral of Madrid, it's not Hilkiah, but Almudena priest, did not call to the king of Spain, to the royal palace, but to me, that I used them to live behind the cathedral 14 years ago. And why me and not the king? Well, I'm professor of Old Testament at the San Damaso University, Madrid, and I teach textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible at our faculty of theology. And I'm passionate about biblical manuscript, and I had read a lot about ancient manuscript discoveries in the second half of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century, not to mention all I have read about the discoveries of the Judean desert, that is the biblical manuscript of Qumran. Well, I'm talking all about this manuscript because I received a call from the priest of the dean of the cathedral that was saying, we have discovered a scroll, a Hebrew scroll, a manuscript in the cathedral. So as you can imagine, I was very excited. What does it mean to discover a manuscript, an ancient, it's in to this priest, an ancient manuscript, a scroll in the cathedral? I was wondering what kind of manuscript I was going to find the day after. And what did I find? Well, I found this parchment scroll that was almost 2 meters long and almost 20 centimeters wide. Excited as I was, I opened the scroll. You can imagine that moment, no? Perhaps it is, perhaps. Okay, so I opened and I realized at first sight that I was not in front of any ancient or biblical, biblical or classical manuscript, but in front of a Megillat Esther, or a scroll of the Book of Esther, that was copied following the rules of the tractate Megillah of the Mishnah, devoted to the reading of this book during the feast of Purim, like during these weeks. This tractate specifies that the book should be read from a scroll in an Assyrian Hebrew, square Hebrew writing, on normal parchment and in ink. In one of the minor tractates of the Talmud, Soferim, it is said that the Book of Esther should be copied for liturgical reading in scroll format on parchment without vocalization, as you can see here, or accents. It is therefore not surprising that the vast majority of manuscripts copies in scroll format that have come down to our day are the books of the Law and the Book of Esther. Surely, as you can see, it was not an ancient manuscript, but certainly it was very beautiful, illuminated scroll. It contains the complete Hebrew text of the Book of Esther, according to the Masoretic tradition. In this case, without vocalization, following the text of the Mishnah, according to the synagogue custom. It does not contain the initial and final blessings that accompany the public reading of the Megillah and that are preserved in some other scrolls. The manuscript was part, that's the answer to the question, why in Madrid Cathedral, the manuscript was part of the legacy of the priest and biblical scholar, José Fernández Montaña, second dean of the cathedral. You have to remember that Madrid belonged to the Toledo diocese at the beginning, till the second part of the 19th century. The second dean of the cathedral, who passed away in 1936. Only in 2010, inside his legacy, it came to light. In accordance with the Masoretic tradition, the Megillat preserves the layout of the text of chapter 9, verse 6 to 10 in a separate column. As you know, this is the list of the 10 sons of Haman who were executed and hanged from gallows that Haman himself has prepared for Mordecai. The Hebrew writing has the customary tagging or decorative crowns that are placed on top of certain consonants, as you can see here. In some cases, these crowns are made up of 3 vertical lines, and in others of a single one. They have been the subject of a rich explanatory tradition, both in the Talmud and in the Kabbalah. These tagging are primarily used to decorate the scrolls of the law, but they are also found in scrolls of Esther, which in time will become the best illustrated manuscript. As you can see, the whole manuscript is richly illuminated with very bright colors. The ornamentation of the manuscripts points to a basically Renaissance style, though already with some elements that hint at the beginning of the Baroque period. The types and combination of colors, the classic and simple lines of the columns, plinths, and panels are typical of the Italian Renaissance, far from the bands of complicated and heavy balustrades that characterize other scrolls with similar decoration that are properly Baroque. Moreover, in the scroll of the Madrid Cathedral, there is no kind of figurative decoration if we accept the feminine heads that are merely outlined, as you can see here, on top and at left and center, nor is there any narrative representation, that is, vignettes that show scenes recounted in the Book of Esther, of the kind that will abound in the scroll of this book, starting in the second half of the 17th century, and especially in the 18th century. However, there are some decorative elements in this manuscript that do point to the birth of the Baroque period. Perhaps the clearest one is the cartouche that looks like a lock, which is placed over the white niches. The effect of bulkiness, as well as the arched shapes that it has, hint at the dawn of the new artistic taste. For these reasons, we can locate the creation of this scroll in the transition from the Renaissance to the Baroque period, that is in the first half of the 17th century. Although we cannot rule out the second half of the 16th century, when in Italy, the probable place of origin of this manuscript, this transition was already taking place. Because of its beauty, I published in 2012 a facsimile edition of the Megillah. Here you have the front cover. And perhaps you are wondering how it is possible to produce a facsimile edition of a scroll in a book, that is, in a codex. And here you have the answer to your question, that is an accordion-shaped arrangement. Here is how it unfolds, this wonderful facsimile edition of the Megillah. But let's come back to our riddle. That is the riddle behind the title of this presentation, that has to do obviously with the Megillat Esther discovered in Madrid's Cathedral. That is how to find a needle in a haystack. Okay. What needle we are talking about? We're talking about the divine name, that is 4 consonants, 4 letters in a row, in a name. And what is the Haystack? Well, all the consonants of the Megillah. Well, as you know, there are 2, perhaps 3 biblical books that do not contain the divine name. As you know, Kohelet, first one, Esther, and probably son of sons. I said probably because, as you know, in the chapter 8, verse 6 of the book of Son of Sons, we have the word Shahebet Yah, that is a flame of Yah. And obviously, in this two last letters, we have the first two letters of the divine name. So let us now concentrate on Megillat Esther and try to find the needle in the haystack that is among all the letters of this book where we cannot find the divine name. Well, it has more than 12,000 letters, and we can face the question, has the divine name been hidden in this book? Or in other way, why there is no divine name, I mean, the divine name, the revealed divine name, revealed to Moses, the divine name, why it is not in this book, has been hidden? Maybe we have to search this name inside the book, how to find it. We can fairly say that it will be like to find a needle in a haystack among more than 12,000 letters. Well, throughout history, there have been several attempts to find this name in the book of Esther. Well, I will refer only to two attempts, the first one in history and another one that has to be with the manuscript we are dealing with. The first attempt must be located in Alexandria, probably, sometime in the 1st century BCE. We can wonder, as the Greek Jews did it, how it is possible that Mordechai, in Greek, or the Queen Esther, did not address God in their affliction. Well, the Greek Jews, probably in Alexandria, introduced the divine name into the book through the prayers of Mordechai and Esther. As you can see here, I read, Kainin Kyrie, o Theos, o Basileus, o Theos Abraham, Theisei Tulau Su, etc., etc. And now, O Lord. Kyrie, Kyrios, as you know, is the Greek translation of the divine name. Well, as you know, we don't know if there is a Hebrew forlage. Could be not. A Hebrew forlage of these additions, Greek additions in the Greek translation of the Book of Esther. And now, O Lord, God, King, God of Abraham, spare your people, for they are looking to reign us. And farther ahead, it said, Kai stepson to penthos hemon eis eugian hinapsontes hymnomem su to onoma Kyrie kai me aphanises stoma ainunton soi. That is, turn our mourning into feasting, that we may live and sing hymns to your name, O Lord. Do not silence the mouth of those who praise you. Or the very beautiful Esther prayer, Kyrie Basileu. Esther is addressing who Basileus, that is God, not the King Asueros. Kyrie Basileu, Ciei monos boethos, boetheson moi te tapeine, kai uk ejuse boethon plem su, etc., etc. O Lord, again, this is the divine name in the Book of Esther, introduced by the Greek Jews. O Lord King, you alone are a helper. Help me. I, who am humble and have no helper apart from you, because my danger is in my hand, and so on. Well, the second attempt from a lot of them has to do with the manuscript of the Cathedral of Madrid. I have to recognize that it took me time to realize that in the Hebrew text of the manuscript, there were some strange signs. On the chapter 5, verse 4, and also in chapter 7, verse 7. Here you have these 4 strange signs like circellus, masoreticus, it's in so, followed by 2 dots in a horizontal line in 2 different places of the Megillat, that is in the chapter 5 and chapter 7. Well, this is the first one, chapter 5, verse 4. As you can see, there are found over 4 consonants, that is yod, he, baf, and he, located in 4 words in a row. If we join the first consonant of each word over which the circellus is found, we get the divine name. So the question is, but what is at stake on chapter 5, verse 4, to get precisely there the hidden divine name? Well, in chapter 5, verse 4, we read, Watomer Esther im al Hamelek top, Hamelek top, Jabo Hamelek Wahamam Hayom El Hamishte Asher Ashitilo. Then Esther said, if it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for king, for him, excuse me, that is the king. Well, it seems to me that there is nothing special in this passage, but let's go deeper to identify who were the first to call attention to the possibility of reading the divine name in this chapter 5, verse 4, and also in the other one, chapter 7. In fact, our manuscript reflects a tradition that comes from afar. It seems to have been the German Pietist, that is, the German Ashkenazis of the 12th and 13th centuries CE, of the school of Eleazar ben Judah of Worms, that were much given to war games. The references to the divine name in chapter 5, verse 4, and 7, verse 7, appear respectively in the commentary of Eleazar ben Judah of Worms, chapter 5, the reference on Esther chapter 5, and in the anonymous commentary of Ashkenazi origin that is found in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. They are also found in the commentary that Zechariah ben Joshua ben Saruk wrote in 1493 after being expelled from Spain and later finding refuge in North Africa. His commentary draws, among other sources, from Eleazar of Worms. Let's concentrate on Eleazar ben Judah of Worms' commentary on the Book of Esther. Well, when Eleazar arrives to chapter 5, verse 4, then Esther said, if it's pleased the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet that I have prepared for him. This is a modern edition of the commentary on the Book of Esther by Rabbi Eleazar ben Judah of Worms. And we have on verse Dalet, that is on verse 4, we have Im al Hamelek, and then the commentary of Rabbi Eleazar ben Judah, that if it is pleases the king, it is explaining about the commentary on these 3 words, if it pleases the king. And Rabbi Eleazar says, the queen put her eyes in the king of the glory, therefore the acronym Yabo Hamelek Wahamam Hayom, that is to say, the glorious name. Well, this is the other place of the manuscript, where we found the 4 circelli masoreticus. That's to say, that is chapter 7, verse 7. And here you have again, but this time, as you can see, the circellus is found over the last consonant of each word, which together again form the divine name. The last consonant, that is in 4 words in a row, ki, kaleta, elau, para'a, that is jot, he, vav, he, again, that it forms the divine name. What do we find in the chapter 7? We find, but Haman stayed to beg his life from Queen Esther, for he saw that the king had determined to destroy him, or better, he saw that his doom was sealed. Well, Rabbi Eleazar has no commentary in his commentary on the Book of Esther to this passage. We have to go to the Bodleian Library to find the commentary on this text, where we find the first one that identified this way of finding the divine name in chapter 7. So I move to the end. Excuse me. That is, we find no marking thought in chapter 1 and verse 20, and in chapter 5, verse 13, where the divine name can be read by joining backwards in the opposite of reading order, the initial consonants. That is in the chapter 1, we can read the initial consonant, but always joining backwards, or the final ones, the final consonants, in 4 words in a row, reading backwards. That's another possibility, and I'm pretty sure for my audience, speaking to my audience, that you know very well other attempts there are in the Kabbalah, a lot of attempts to find the divine name inside this Book of Esther. I wanted just to present the discovery of this very beautiful manuscript, where, as I have said at the beginning, we can find a needle finally in a haystack. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that fascinating view of the manuscript. Since I'm chairing, I got the privilege of asking you the first question, and it might be slightly awkward to answer this, but I was wondering, how did this scroll pass from the Jewish community in presumably the early 17th century? How did it get to the collection of an archbishop? What was the process? Do we have any record of how it got there?
Well, I tried to study it. Well, this José Fernández Montaña, this dean of the cathedral, was a very well-known scholar, and in his personal library, right out in the cathedral, we wanted to move to our faculty. We found, for example, the Walton polyglot. It's incredible in there, and a lot of dictionary of vocabulary of Arabic, Syriac, also Hebrew. It was a very incredible scholar, and was the one who traveled to Vienna to get back with the king, with the future king of Spain, and that is the Queen Maria Cristina. That is the spouse of the King Alfonso the 12th. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he had a good relationship with. We're talking about the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. That is the date of the black market, and the date of where a lot of discoveries came to light. And I'm pretty sure that it was in the travels, probably in Italy, as you know. It was impossible in Spain because the Jews were expelled in 1492. So it came from probably from the rich community of Jews in Italy, probably going through the royal palace because the relationship with the royal family or not. I think these are the two ways, because of the relationship as a scholar, and especially with Rome or Italy, or through as a gift through the royal palace. I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. And just to follow up on that, why did it take so long for the scroll to be discovered? Was there? You said that the dean had a lot of books and manuscripts. Did it just not come to the top of the collection, or what was the delay in discovering it, do you think?
Well, it is very simple, because José Fernández Montaña, this wonderful scholar, passed away during the Civil War in 1936. That means that it was inside his legacy that was translated. I suppose, I assume, to the then cathedral. It was another temple, and it was there for so many years. And in the 80s, 90s of the last century, it was our cathedral was finished. And I think it was because of the moving of this legacy from the first temple, no, from the first cathedral to the second one, the last one, that in checking and trying to put in order all this library on this legacy, came into light this manuscript.
Okay, that's fascinating. Thank you. I would like to draw your attention to the next meeting, which will be on the 4th of April. This will be 5 to 6 p.m, so a different time, because the time change will have happened finally in the UK. And this is Professor Bert Grön, who is the Professor Emeritus of Liturgical Studies and Sacramental Theology from the University of Graz in Austria. And he's speaking on the very interesting question of Nikos Kazantzakis and Orthodox Christianity. Kazantzakis, I think, was responsible for writing the book The Last Temptation of Christ, which of course was very controversial at the time. And this is in good time for Easter, so particularly interesting, I think, to many of us. And that's on the 4th of April, but you will receive the link, I think, through Taya. I'd like to thank Professor Carvajal for speaking on this interesting subject this evening, and I wish everyone a good Purim, and also Pesach in good time, though it's very much out of phase with Easter this year. But thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.